Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this cookbook. It is called Williamson's Cookery. Now I have the 6th edition of this cookbook that was printed in 1866. It was originally printed in 1864. And Williamson is a company, or was a company, in Edinburgh in the 1860s, and they had a cooking school, but they also did catering for parties, weddings, that sort of thing. And so in this cookbook, there are a large number of recipes that would be considered sort of hoity-toity or high class, but there are also a lot of really sort of solid Scottish classics. And one of the things that I find very interesting about those solid Scottish classics is that prior to, say, let's just do a cutoff of World War II, the beginning of World War II. Prior to that, a lot of those Scottish classics are completely different than how they would be made today. And they use ingredients that today apparently aren't so common in Scotland. And probably the recipes changed because the availability of certain ingredients changed. Today I'm not going to get into that, but I will be getting into that with this stack of Scottish cookbooks over the coming months. I'm going to do a bunch of recipes that people tell me are not Scottish, and yet going all the way back to the 1700s, they are part of rural Scottish life. Today we're going to do something really fun, macaroni pudding. And again, macaroni pudding, this is 1866. This basic recipe for macaroni pudding goes back into these cookbooks all the way to the mid-1700s is where I can find the last one, which doesn't mean that it didn't occur before that. I just don't have it in any of my cookbooks. Now, you start out with macaroni. Now, it says to steep the macaroni in water for 1 hour, which I've done, and now I need to drain it. After I've got it drained, I'm going to put it in this pot, and then I'm supposed to add to it a quart of good milk. And it is a fresh bag, so I'm going to put the whole bag in. There you go. Okay. And I will put a fresh bag in before I put it back in the fridge. I'm not that guy. So I'm supposed to put this on the fire and bring it to a boil. And then once it's boiling, set it to the edge of the fire and simmer it until the macaroni is soft. So I'm not going to set it to the side of my fire. I'll just turn my burner down a little bit, bring this up to a boil, and boil it until it's soft. Now, as this comes up to a boil, you want to watch it fairly carefully. Don't walk away. Milk does have a tendency to boil over if it's not in the right size pot, so you have to be very careful with that. You also don't want it to burn to the bottom of the pot, and you need to stir it so that at the beginning your macaroni doesn't stick to the bottom of the pot. 3 very important things. So I have reached a boil. I'm going to move it off to the side of my fire and just let it simmer until the macaroni is soft. It doesn't say if I need to cover the pot. I don't think I need to. While that's happening, I'm going to move on to the next part, and that is eggs, sugar, and butter. I'm supposed to whisk those together. This is essentially custard with macaroni in it. A custard with macaroni in it and very little to none in terms of flavoring. Egg number 3. Some sugar and some melted butter. And I'll just give that a whisk. Okay, I think the macaroni should be cooked at this point. It just needs to soften, which between the soaking in the water for an hour beforehand and then bubbling away in the milk, yeah, it's done. It doesn't take very long to soften at all. And I'm really worried about it getting too soft and just disappearing into the pudding, which it quite possibly could, because by the time it goes in the oven for another hour, I expect the macaroni to be pretty soft. So I'm going to keep whisking while I pour in the first bit of hot milk, just to temper the eggs. You don't want to scramble or cook the eggs. And I think I've done a pretty good job of not scrambling them. And then in goes some macaroni. Okay, I don't mean to laugh, but it is pretty funny. Okay, so I've got a baking dish, and I thought this was going to be big enough. it's going to be just, I'm going to get a bigger one just in case. Okay, this is possibly too big, but I'm going to err on the side of caution because I don't want to spill on the way to the oven. Now, I put this into this container, stoneware dish. That's probably just about right. Now, I'm supposed to bake this in a slow oven for 1 hour.
Hey, Glenn.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, friends. You said we were having desserts. Spoon, I'm looking.
We are. I think a spoon.
Looks like a custard.
Yes.
Looks like a custard.
There you go.
It's very custard. Is that macaroni?
That is macaroni.
Okay, so it's a custard with macaroni. I'm in. I love custard.
Macaroni pudding. So,
It has all the textures of a custard. It's lacking a little something, though.
there's no flavor.
It's kind of bland.
Yeah.
There's no cinnamon, no vanilla.
Wow.
Those are often allspice. Those are kind of all things you kind of toss into these.
Well, this is, yeah, I was expecting something, but there isn't anything. And it's interesting because in this time period, this is just at that spot before vanilla takes off. This is 1860.
Oh, because
Something.
Vanilla's expensive.
1841 it wasn't until 1841 that humans figured out how to pollinate vanilla and even sort of grow it commercially.
Yeah.
And so this is then that time period where it's really expensive. We're just figuring it out. But I would have expected another type of flavoring because often prior to vanilla,
Rose or
or lemon water or orange water or all of those things would have been used.
The other thing I find fascinating is that as much as I got lucky and I saw a macaroni, there's very little texture to the macaroni. Like other than it was like it's like I saw the one token piece and I see like another piece there and maybe 2 or 3 there. Otherwise, you really can't tell that there's macaroni here. Like
You
there's
wouldn't know it.
It
No.
is less visible to the mouth than when you have rice pudding,
Yes, definitely.
which amazes me. Like I don't know.
So I'm not really super positive what the macaroni's bringing to the dish. I mean,
I don't know.
the custard on its own would be good. Now, having said that, I don't know what it's bringing to the party.
It's filling out more space.
It's filling out more space. And when you look through all of these Scottish cookbooks, and even this particular Scottish cookbook, there are other macaroni custards that move into the savory territory.
Okay.
That they start adding cheese. Even though it's a custard, they start adding savory cheese. And then it sort of
then it
straddles that line of macaroni and cheese.
Okay. I was actually thinking more quiche-like, but you know.
Yeah, and so this could go either sweet or savory, and this one sort of falls down the middle of it's not actually that sweet because there's very little sugar in it.
I think I would just put a dash of cinnamon on top.
Yeah.
And that would probably flush it out nicely.
Cinnamon or nutmeg.
That being said, I've eaten half of mine.
Yeah.
So there's something I like about the texture of custard, clearly.
Well, and the other thing that shows up a lot in here as a flavoring is they call it Jamaica pepper. Allspice. Yeah. So that's another thing that could go in here. Anyway, I think it's pretty interesting. I might jazz it up with a little bit of our homemade maple syrup later.
Oh, that would also go really well with it. That's a good idea.
Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.